It was a lazy Sunday afternoon, one of those rare moments when the house felt unusually calm. My mom was in the living room, fussing with a stack of old photo albums she kept on the lowest shelf of the bookcase. She claimed she was just cleaning, but I knew better. Those albums were like stage props she brought out for guests. Lucas, my fiancé, sat beside me on the couch, his coffee mug steaming gently. He was polite, the kind of man who could listen to small talk for hours without showing the slightest boredom. My sister was leaning against the doorway, scrolling through her phone like she was allergic to human interaction. Mom's voice rang out, cheerful and rehearsed. "Oh, let me show you some of your baby pictures." She always said it like it was a surprise. It wasn't. I'd seen this ritual play out dozens of times whenever someone new entered our orbit. Old photos, forced smiles, her commentary dripping with nostalgia. Lucas smiled and leaned forward politely. I reached for my iced tea, already bracing for the inevitable. Birthday party snapshots, awkward school portraits, me with bad haircuts and missing teeth. But it didn't go that way. Mom flipped open the first album with a flourish. She started narrating each page like a tour guide. That was her first day at preschool. "Look at that little dress, your grandmother sent it from Europe." Lucas was nodding along until his eyes landed on a particular photo. He froze. Not the polite, "Oh, this is cute" pause you make when someone shows you a baby picture. No, this was different. His fingers tightened around the page, his posture stiffened. He looked at me, then back at the picture, then at me again. "Don't you see it?" he whispered. I blinked, confused. "See what?" He tilted the album toward me. It was a picture of a little girl, maybe 3 years old, standing in front of a stone fountain. The smile was wide, almost too wide. Lucas's voice dropped even lower. "That's not you." My laugh caught in my throat. "What are you talking about? Of course it's me." But even as I said it, something in my stomach tightened. I looked again. The girl had my hair color, my supposed hair color, but her eyes, no, her jawline, no. And then there was the strange stiffness of the pose, like someone had told her exactly where to stand, exactly how to smile. My skin prickled. Lucas didn't push. He just gave me a look, the kind of look that says, "We'll talk later." I felt heat rise in my face. I closed the album a little too quickly, pretending I was just turning the page. Mom kept talking like nothing had happened. My sister didn't even glance up from her phone. But I could feel the shift. The air in the room felt heavier, like we were all suddenly acting in a play where I hadn't been given my lines. Lucas sat back, his hand brushing mine under the coffee table. His thumb tapped twice our silent code for stay calm. So I smiled. I nodded at whatever Mom was saying, but my mind was nowhere near the conversation. I was replaying that frozen moment over and over. Lucas's sharp inhale, his whisper, my own uneasy laugh. I'd never questioned those albums before, they were just there. Tangible proof of a childhood I could barely remember. Proof I hadn't thought I needed to question. But now that proof suddenly felt like a prop. We stayed maybe 15 more minutes. I excused us early, claiming Lucas had a work call. Mom fussed a little, saying we didn't visit often enough. My sister barely muttered goodbye. In the car, the first thing Lucas said was, "Do you have any baby pictures outside of what your mom keeps?" I shook my head. Number Y. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out something folded in a napkin. I stared as he unwrapped it. 3 loose photographs. "You took these?" My voice was sharper than I intended. He nodded. I had to. "Look." He spread them out on the dashboard. The first was the fountain picture. The second, a little girl in a pink coat standing by a chain-link fence. The third, the same girl, same exact smile, in front of a swing set. "Same expression," Lucas said. "Same angle, same shadow on the face. These weren't taken naturally. It's like someone copy-pasted her face." I swallowed hard. "So, what are you saying?" "I'm saying," he glanced at me, "if this is supposed to be you, something's wrong." The car felt suddenly too small. My pulse pounded in my ears. I laughed again, that same brittle laugh from earlier. "You think my mom faked baby pictures of me?" Lucas didn't answer. He didn't have to. We drove in silence for a while. Streetlights smeared gold across the windshield. Every so often I caught him glancing at me like he was making sure I hadn't vanished. I stared straight ahead, my mind tumbling through years of memories or the lack of them. The truth was, I didn't remember anything before I was about 5 years old. Not a single real moment. And until now, I never thought that was strange. That night, I laid the 3 photos out on my kitchen counter. Lucas had gone to bed, but I couldn't move. My eyes kept darting between them, hunting for some tiny detail that would make it all okay. It didn't come. Instead, that tightening in my chest grew sharper. Every smile in those pictures looked more like a mask. Every backdrop felt staged. And one thought refused to leave me. If that little girl isn't me, then who is she? I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, the girl in the pink coat was waiting for me. That same too wide smile, that same frozen expression, like she was daring me to figure out who she was. By 3 a.m., I gave up on sleep. I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Lucas, and padded into the kitchen. The 3 stolen photographs were still on the counter, arranged in a neat row like suspects in a lineup. The more I stared, the more my brain screamed. This is not random. The shadows were identical, the smile identical, the tilt of the head identical, not kids all look the same identical, not family resemblance identical, manufactured identical. It was the kind of sameness you only see when someone forces it. By morning, I had a plan. First stop was the attic. My mom hated anyone going up there, called it a mess, but I'd been in it enough times to know it wasn't messy, just strangely organized. I pulled down the creaky ladder, the smell of dust and cedar hitting me like a wall. Boxes, neatly labeled in Mom's handwriting, Christmas decor, winter clothes, kitchen gadgets, and then one box shoved in the far corner, unlabeled. I dragged it toward the weak patch of sunlight spilling through the tiny window. Inside were more photo albums, but these were different. No captions, no dates written in the margins. Flipping through them felt like stepping into an uncanny valley. Here she was again, pink coat girl, fountain girl, swing set girl, page after page of her in different settings, but always with that same unnatural smile. And then, an envelope, tucked between 2 pages. Inside a hospital wristband. Faded. The tiny plastic buckle still intact. The name printed on it was not mine. My throat went dry. I wanted to take it straight to Lucas, but I knew if I did, there'd be no going back. Once I said it out loud, the quiet hum of suspicion would turn into a roaring, undeniable truth. Instead, I tucked the envelope into my tote bag and went back downstairs like nothing happened. Mom was in the kitchen, humming softly while slicing apples. She looked up and smiled. "Sleep okay?" she asked. "Fine," I lied. Her gaze flicked briefly to my tote bag. If she noticed anything, she didn't show it. I spent the afternoon at the public library, where the Wi-Fi was reliable and no one asked why you were glued to a computer screen. The first thing I searched was the name on the wristband. A handful of results came up birth announcements in old local newspapers. One entry caught my eye. A baby girl born at St. Mary's Hospital. Same month and year as me. But not me. Different parents' names. No connection to my family whatsoever. Lucas joined me after work. He slid into the seat beside me, glanced at the open search results, and let out a low whistle. "That's unsettling," he murmured. I told him about the attic, about the box, about the photo albums that felt more like a catalog than a family keepsake. He didn't say much, but his jaw tightened. Finally, he asked, "Do you want to know the truth, or do you want to be able to pretend you never saw this?" I didn't answer right away. My fingers traced the edge of the library table, the wood warm from the sun filtering through the tall windows. "Both," I said finally. The next logical step was my sister. She'd always been cagey when it came to my early childhood. Anytime I asked about it, she'd give me vague answers or change the subject entirely. I texted her. "Can we talk?" "In person." Her reply was instant. "About what?" "Family stuff," I wrote. An hour later, we met at a quiet coffee shop halfway between our apartments. She arrived in a beige coat, sunglasses still on even though it was cloudy. We ordered coffee. Saturday. I didn't waste time. "Do you know the girl in these pictures isn't me?" I asked, sliding one of the stolen photos across the table. Her hand froze midway to her cup. She stared at the picture, then at me. "Where did you get this?" "From Mom's albums," I said evenly, "and from the box in the attic." Her eyes darted to the cafe window, then back to me. "You shouldn't have gone up there," she said quietly. "Why?" She leaned in, voice barely above a whisper. "Because Mom doesn't like questions she can't control." My pulse spiked. That's not an answer. Her jaw clenched. "It's the only one you're getting today." She pushed the photo back toward me. "And if you're smart, you'll drop it." I stared at her, at the faint tremor in her hand, at the way she couldn't meet my eyes. Why? I asked again. But she was already standing, slinging her purse over her shoulder. Some truths, she said, don't set you free. They burn everything down. And then she was gone, the little bell over the cafe door jingling softly behind her. That night, I sat on my couch with the lights off, the city glowing faintly outside my window. Lucas was in the kitchen making tea. He didn't ask what my sister had said. Maybe he didn't need to. The wristband sat on the coffee table between us, the name staring up at me in faded black ink. Every instinct in me said my sister was right. This was going to burn everything down. But the other part of me, the part that had been pretending for years, was finally wide awake. And once you're awake, you can't go back to sleep. I stayed away from Mom's house for the rest of the week. It wasn't fear. It was strategy. Lucas kept telling me, "You've stirred the water. Let it settle." But the water wasn't settling. If anything, it was starting to boil. Text after text kept popping up on my phone. From Mom, "Call me." Then, "We need to talk." Then, "This is important." From my sister, "Mom's not happy." A few hours later, "You're digging in places you shouldn't." By Thursday, the last one came in. "Stop before you make this worse." I didn't stop. I went over there. The front yard looked different. It was the same grass, the same old maple tree, but the air felt heavier, like the house knew I was coming. I walked in without knocking. Mom was at the kitchen counter, cutting slices of coffee cake with slow, deliberate movements. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "There you are," she said. Her voice was sweet, but the way she set the knife down made my skin prickle. I sat at the table. "You've been calling me. I'm your mother, I worry." She slid a plate toward me. I didn't touch it. "I went into the attic," I said. Her hands stilled. "Why?" "There's a box up there. Photos. And a hospital wristband." Her expression didn't change, but the air between us did. The front door opened, and my sister walked in, still in her scrubs. She stopped in the doorway like she'd just walked into the wrong scene. "Perfect timing," Mom said, her voice too calm. "Your sister thinks she's uncovered something." I turned to her. "I have, and I think you both know what it means." She crossed her arms. "You think a few old pictures prove anything?" "I think they prove you've both been hiding something from me my entire life." Her eyes narrowed. "Careful." It wasn't a shout, it was colder than that. I reached into my bag and pulled out the envelope. The wristband slid across the table. Mom looked at it like it was alive. She didn't reach for it right away, she just let the silence stretch until it felt like a noose tightening. Finally, she picked it up. Her thumb brushed the faded lettering. "You don't understand," she said quietly. "Then explain it to me." She set the wristband down hard. "That's not how this works. You don't get to question the foundation of your life because you're feeling restless." "Restless?" My voice cracked. "That band has a name that isn't mine. Who is she?" Mom's jaw clenched. "That's none of your concern." My sister stepped forward. "Enough." But it wasn't aimed at Mom, it was aimed at me. "Why?" I demanded. "Why is it so dangerous for me to know the truth?" Her eyes flicked toward Mom, and that was answer enough. "You think you want this," she said, "but you're not ready for what comes next." "Then make me ready." Mom's hand curled into a fist. "You need to drop this before you ruin more than you understand." That night, Lucas and I spread every document we had across the living room floor, report cards, medical forms, photos. The gaps were glaring. No baby photos before age 5. No preschool enrollment. No medical records from before kindergarten. Lucas leaned back against the couch. "They didn't just hide your past, they erased it." 2 days later, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. A woman's voice said, "If you want to know about the name on that wristband, meet me tomorrow. Noon. Willow Park. Come alone." And just like that, the line went dead. I stood there in my kitchen, the phone still warm in my hand. I didn't tell Lucas. I didn't tell anyone. Because deep down I knew if I told them, someone, maybe Mom, maybe my sister, would make sure that meeting never happened. And I had the strangest feeling. Whatever waited for me in that park was going to change everything. The next morning the air felt heavy, like the sky knew something I didn't. Willow Park was only 15 minutes from my apartment, but the drive felt longer, every stoplight holding me in place, every red sedan in my rear view making my chest tighten. Lucas thought I was running errands. I hated lying to him, but this was the only way. Whoever that woman was, I didn't want anyone, not even him, getting in the way. By the time I pulled into the cracked asphalt parking lot, the park was nearly empty. A couple of joggers, an older man feeding squirrels, the faint sound of a lawnmower somewhere far off. I sat in my car for a full minute, scanning faces. Then I saw her. Mid-52nd, pale trench coat, standing near the old stone fountain in the center of the park. She didn't wave, she just watched me. I walked toward her, gravel crunching under my sneakers. "You came," she said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes darted past me, scanning the park. "You're the one who called me?" She nodded. "You have something that belongs to someone else." "The wristband," I said. Her gaze sharpened. "Where did you get it?" "From my mother's attic." She exhaled slowly, like that confirmed something she didn't want to be true. "That name on it," she said quietly, "was my daughter's." The ground seemed to tilt. "Your daughter?" She nodded. "Born the same week as you, same hospital, but she stopped, swallowing hard. She didn't come home with me." The wind picked up, carrying the faint scent of cut grass. My skin prickled. "What are you saying?" She took a step closer. "I think your family knows what happened to her, and I think you're the reason I never saw her again." Before I could respond, a car door slammed somewhere behind me. I turned. "Mom." She was walking toward us, fast, her coat swinging open, hair pulled back in that severe way she wore when she meant business. And just behind her, my sister. "What are you doing here?" Mom's voice cracked across the distance like a whip. The woman in the trench coat stiffened. "This is not your conversation," Mom snapped at her. "Leave." The woman's jaw tightened. "She deserves to know." "She deserves peace," Mom cut in. "And you're not here to give it to her." My sister reached me first, her hand clamping down on my arm. "We told you to stop." I pulled free. "You followed me?" "Of course we did," she said flatly. "You're walking into something you don't understand." "That's not your choice to make," I shot back. Mom stepped between me and the woman. "Go home," she ordered me. "Number." Her eyes narrowed. "You think this person is going to give you the truth? She'll give you pieces, pieces that will hurt you, and you won't know what's real." The woman's voice rose over hers. "I can prove it. I have records, photos. The day you're—" "Enough," Mom's voice boomed, drawing stares from across the park. The woman flinched. I froze. Mom turned to me, her tone dropping to a near whisper. "If you keep chasing this, you're going to wish you hadn't. You think you're ready for answers, but you're not ready for what they'll take from you." My pulse thundered in my ears. "Then try me." Her expression hardened. "You have no idea who you're picking a fight with." The woman in the trench coat touched my arm gently. "Meet me again. Tomorrow. Different place. Alone." She slipped a folded piece of paper into my hand. Before I could look at it, Mom stepped forward, knocking it away. It fluttered to the ground. "Don't," she warned. "Don't follow strangers into dark alleys thinking you'll find light." My sister bent to pick up the paper, but instead of handing it back, she tore it clean in half. I stared at her. "What are you doing?" "Keeping you from making the biggest mistake of your life," she said. The woman's face went pale. She turned to me. "They'll bury the truth before they let you have it." It was over in seconds. Mom pulled me toward the parking lot. My sister stayed close, her grip on my elbow iron strong. I didn't resist, not because I wanted to go, but because the scene had drawn too many eyes. When we reached my car, Mom leaned in close. "No more parks, no more phone calls. If I hear you've been digging again, I will end it." The drive home was a blur. Lucas was waiting in the kitchen when I walked in, his expression a mix of confusion and concern. "You're shaking," he said. "What happened?" I opened my mouth, but the image of my sister tearing that paper flashed in my mind. The woman's warning echoed in my ears. "They were there," I said finally. "Both of them." Lucas frowned. "At the park?" I nodded. They knew exactly where I'd be. That night, lying in bed, I couldn't stop replaying it. The look in Mom's eyes, the grip of my sister's hand, the urgency in the stranger's voice. This wasn't about keeping me from being hurt. It was about keeping me from finding something they'd spent years burying. And if they were willing to follow me, confront me, intercept me in public, what else were they willing to do? 2 days after Willow Park, my phone went silent. Not just quiet, silent. Calls from unknown numbers stopped. No more cryptic texts. No follow-up from the woman in the trench coat. At first, I told myself it was coincidence. Maybe she changed her mind. Maybe she decided it was too risky. But by the third day, I started to notice other things. My email password stopped working. Twice. A stack of mail I was expecting gone. And then Lucas told me he'd gotten a strange call while I was in the shower. They asked if you were doing okay, he said. Wouldn't leave a name. Hung up when I pressed. By Friday, I couldn't ignore it. Something was closing in around me. I went to the library to use a public computer safer, I thought. But when I tried to search the name on the wristband, the page froze. The librarian apologized, saying, "The system's been acting funny all morning." Funny. Right. That evening, I drove to Mom's house without warning. The living room looked different. The shelves where the photo albums used to be? Empty. Her expression when she saw me, that mix of irritation and false sweetness, told me everything. "Looking for something?" she asked. "You moved them." Her smile didn't waver. "Spring cleaning." "It's February," I said flatly. She shrugged. "Better early than never." I didn't believe for a second that this was about dust. On my way out, I passed the hall closet, the one where she kept old paperwork in labeled boxes. It was locked. It had never been locked before. When I rattled the handle, she called from the kitchen, "Don't go poking around in there." I got home late and found Lucas at the dining table, laptop open, brow furrowed. "Did you change our Wi-Fi password?" he asked. "Number." He turned the screen toward me. "It's been reset, and someone logged into our account from a different location this morning." My stomach sank. "What location?" He hesitated. "2 blocks from your mom's." The next morning, I drove to the storage unit where I'd kept some old boxes from college journals, scrapbooks, random things I couldn't part with. The unit door was open. Half the boxes were gone. I called the manager. He swore they hadn't had a break-in. "No record of anyone else accessing your unit," he said, "except me. And now, apparently, someone else." By Sunday, I couldn't shake the feeling that my own apartment wasn't safe. I started keeping the wristband with me at all times in my jacket pocket, wrapped in a napkin. I even slept with it under my pillow. Lucas noticed. "You're acting like someone's going to take it from you." "They will," I said without hesitation. That afternoon, my sister showed up unannounced. She didn't bother knocking. "We need to talk," she said, stepping inside. "About what? About you throwing your life away chasing ghosts?" I laughed bitterly. "That's rich, coming from the person tearing up phone numbers and following me to public parks." Her jaw tightened. "I'm trying to keep you safe. By erasing every lead I have? You don't understand the kind of people." She stopped herself, eyes flicking toward the hallway where Lucas was listening. "Go on," I said. But she didn't. She just grabbed her bag and stood. As she passed me, she whispered, "Stop before they stop you." That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Every sound in the apartment, the hum of the fridge, the creak of the pipes, felt amplified. I thought about the missing boxes, the locked closet at Mom's Anatine, the silence from the woman in the trench coat. And for the first time I wondered, was Lucas safe to trust? He'd been supportive, patient. But he also had access to everything: my accounts, my schedule, my movements. If someone wanted to get to me, he'd be the easiest way. The thought made my skin crawl. In the dark, I reached under my pillow and touched the wristband. It was still there, but I couldn't shake the feeling that by morning it might not be. By Monday morning, it was no longer subtle. It started with my phone. Contacts disappeared. Not all of them, just the ones I'd been relying on for this search. The woman from Willow Park, the old librarian who'd agreed to help me dig through archives, even an old coworker who once told me she knew a story about my family. Gone. When I tried to re-add them, my phone froze. Twice. By lunchtime, my email was locked again. Lucas said, "Call the provider. Get them to reset it." I did. They said there'd been a security request from my account earlier that morning, and it had been approved. Approved, but not by me. That afternoon, I drove to the library again, hoping maybe my librarian friend could still help me offline. The desk was empty. When I asked about her, the young clerk said, "She doesn't work here anymore, left suddenly last week." I left feeling like the sidewalk itself was tilting under my feet. 2 hours later, my sister showed up at my apartment. No warning. "We need to talk," she said, pushing past me. I stayed by the door. "Say what you came to say." She didn't sit. "This has to stop. You're making a mess you can't clean up." "A mess for who? You? Mom?" "For everyone," she snapped. "You think you're chasing the truth, but all you're doing is burning bridges you can't rebuild?" I folded my arms. "You're afraid I'll find something. That's why you're shutting people out of my life." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "If you're cut off from the wrong people, you can't be hurt by them." That's not protection, I said. That's control. She didn't deny it. She just reached for her bag. Mom's worried about you. I'm worried about me too, I shot back. That night, Lucas and I went for groceries. Halfway down the bread aisle, I spotted Mom at the end of the row. She was talking to Mrs. Alvarez, my old neighbor, her hand resting lightly on the woman's arm. Mrs. Alvarez glanced at me once, then quickly looked away. When I tried to say hello, she muttered something and walked off. Mom just smiled. Small towns remember big mistakes, she said softly as she passed me. The next day, my keycard for work wouldn't open the side door I always used. Security told me my access had been temporarily suspended. No explanation. By Wednesday, it got worse. Lucas and I were supposed to meet a contact he'd found someone who'd worked at the hospital in the 92nd. We arrived at the diner, ordered coffee, and waited. She never showed. When Lucas called her number, it went straight to voicemail. Hours later, he admitted she'd texted him earlier that day. Sorry, can't help after all. Thursday morning, the real blow came. The storage unit manager called to say my rental was no longer active. When I asked why, he said the account had been closed by an authorized family member. I drove there immediately. The unit was empty. Not just empty, scrubbed clean. The journals, the old scrapbooks, the boxes of random mementos I'd kept since college gone. I stood there, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the air smelling faintly of bleach. For the first time, I felt it in my bones. They weren't just erasing my past. They were erasing my present. That night, Lucas made pasta, trying to lighten the mood. I barely touched mine. You're somewhere else, he said. I'm everywhere else, I replied. He reached for my hand. You still have me. I wanted to believe that. I needed to believe that. But a whisper in the back of my mind wouldn't let me. Because if Mom and my sister could get to everyone else, how long before they got to him? By Friday, the isolation was complete. No more messages. No more tips. Even the safe places felt compromised. I realized then that I had two choices. I could let them seal me off, box me in, and let the truth rot in the dark. Or I could start moving in ways they couldn't predict. Late that night, while the city slept, I packed a small duffel. Not to run. Not yet. Just enough to make it look like I might. Because the only way to survive a game you're losing is to change the rules entirely. For weeks, I had been reacting always a step behind, letting Mom and my sister dictate the pace. They cut my connections, intercepted my leads, and pushed me into a corner. It worked, until now. Because this time, I decided the game would change. No more defense. It was my turn to move first. I started by disappearing from their radar. Saturday morning, I left my smartphone powered off on the kitchen counter. Lucas gave me a puzzled look. You're going out without it? That's the point, I said. Instead, I slipped his old flip phone into my jacket pocket. No GPS, no messaging apps, no easy way to track me. I took the back roads across town, avoiding the main routes I usually drove. The cold February air cut through the cracked window as I headed toward the East Side Flea Market. The market was sprawling, chaotic. The smell of kettle corn and grilled hot dogs mixed with the faint must of old books. Vendors called out their prices over the hum of the crowd. I wasn't here to browse. I was here to equip myself. A vintage Polaroid camera, $30. 2 rolls of instant film, another $10. A worn leather notebook, pages still crisp, $5. Not souvenirs. Tools. If they were going to erase me, I would build my own record one they couldn't touch. My next stop was a library 20 miles away. No one there knew me. No one would think twice about what I was searching. I avoided the name on the wristband. That search was too obvious now. Instead, I dug into hospital employee rosters from the year I was born. 2 names surfaced repeatedly. A maternity nurse who left St. Mary's suddenly, and a records clerk who retired a few years later. I copied the information by hand into the notebook. No printing, no emailing, every letter written in my own pen stroke. By the time I left, the sun was dipping low, spilling amber light across the snow-dusted streets. I had a plan. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't safe. But it was mine. Sunday morning, I called my sister from the flip phone. Her voice was wary. Why are you calling me from a weird number? I'm ready to talk, I said. Finally, Mom and I, not with Mom, just you, 2 hours, neutral place. Before she could protest, I hung up. The diner I chose sat just off the highway linoleum floors, the smell of burnt coffee lingering in the air. She arrived exactly on time, scanning the room before sliding into the booth. Why here? She asked. Because it's not a place you can control, I said. Her smile was tight. So talk. I reached into my bag and pulled out the leather notebook, sliding it across the table. These are the names of people who were there when I was born. People you and Mom haven't gotten to yet. She flipped it open. Her eyes flicked over the pages, and I caught the faintest hitch in her breath before she masked it. You think you're clever, she said. No, I replied. I know I am. Her gaze sharpened. You don't understand what you're walking into. Then make me understand, I said. She didn't answer. Her nails tapped against the formica in a slow, deliberate rhythm. Mom's not going to like this, she said finally. Good, I said. She can be the one reacting for once. I stood before she could speak again. She didn't follow me out. That told me enough she would go straight to Mom. Back home, Lucas was waiting. You look lighter, he said. I feel like I'm finally holding the wheel, I replied. But control was fragile. I knew I'd just started a clock and Mom would be counting down to her next move. That night, I cleared the kitchen table. Polaroid camera. Notebook. County map. I marked every address, every potential witness. My route would be unpredictable, no set pattern for them to track. Lucas leaned in the doorway, arms crossed. And if they find you before you find them? They won't, I said, though I wasn't entirely sure. Monday morning, I visited the retired records clerk first. She was hesitant, glancing past me to the quiet street before letting me inside. We sat at her kitchen table, steam curling from 2 mugs of coffee. There were irregularities back then, she said softly. Paperwork that didn't match. Infants. Moved from one file to another. Moved? I asked carefully. She nodded. Not officially, but it happened, and some of us knew better than to ask questions. I thanked her and slipped out the back door, heading for my car. Half a block down, a silver sedan turned onto the street behind me. Even before I saw her face in the rear view, I knew. Mom. I didn't let her catch up. I took 2 quick turns, merged onto the highway, and lost her in the midday traffic. Back home, I locked the door and sat at the table, writing down every word the clerk had said. If they were going to bury my history, I'd carve it into stone. For the first time since this started, I felt it momentum. Not victory, not yet, but movement in my favor. And for now, that was enough to keep me pushing forward. If you've been following my journey, you know the stakes are only getting higher. The next step, it's going to push everything and everyone to the breaking point. Stay close. And if you don't want to miss when the truth finally fights back, subscribe to LYLY Stories